Greetings, YouTube. I found myself incredulous at a video I watched this morning dealing with the alt-right, the alternative right. And a more appropriate term for the alt-right would be neo-Nazis, which is what they are. They're neo-Nazis. They're white nationalists, they're racists, they're misogynists, they're anti-Semites. They're neo-Nazis. They've come up with a name that is more pleasing to the eye and to the ear, has less historical context, so it's more difficult to pin it down initially. But that's what they are. And the person in the little news piece I watched was talking about bridging the gap between contemporary society and the alt-right movement. And I was just utterly incredulous. Bridging the gap with neo-Nazis? No. We should treat neo-Nazis the way we treated Nazis. We should eliminate them. We should not be bridging the gap. And find some consensus, some middle ground. There is no middle ground with neo-Nazis. The fact that we are having this conversation means that you have moved the whole frame of reference in the world to the right. You are playing into their hands. When faced with neo-Nazi, you don't move in their direction. You don't even hint at that. You tell them until you are in the middle, we won't even have a conversation with you. Until you move to the healthy position, until you abandon your toxic, vile worldview, we are not having a conversation. There was an NPR interview last weekend I was crafting in the shop, and I couldn't listen to it because he was a well-spoken white nationalist. And one of his most deeply held beliefs is that black people are less intelligent than white people. And if that had gone into a conversation in the real world, I'd be just like, stop! We're done until you end that personal belief. Until you cease to hold that, until you understand why it's wrong and why that is not healthy, we can't have a conversation. Now, people are going to say, oh, you're shutting down conversation. You're not going to get a dialogue. I don't give a crap about dialogue right now. There are some worldviews which you cannot dialogue. Now, there are exceptions. I know of a case of a black man that actually has gotten members of the KKK to give up their robes. More power to him. May he be sainted upon his death. I am not that guy. And no one is entitled to my time and effort, or your time and effort. And we all have bright lines that we don't want to cross. And one of my bright lines is treating neo-Nazis or white nationalists as though it's a viable topic of conversation. I am not moving in their direction to legitimize their worldview. They need to at least get to the middle before we can have a conversation, and then we can start moving towards a progressive worldview. Because if we are not all about being inclusive and expanding human rights and civil liberties, then we're not talking slightly outside progressive. We're talking neo-Nazis and white nationalists. So why do I bring this up? Well, I saw both these news pieces in the last week, but also half of the American electorate just declared itself to be either directly white supremacist or backers of the white supremacy. Because that's what that election we just held showed. There was a time when bigots were afraid of being socially condemned, so they didn't say things out loud except to other bigots. Well, the Cheetos pulled that scab off, so now it's out in the open. And in this particular case, it isn't about letting sunshine in, because they're immune to that. They're proud of their bigotry. They're waving Confederate flags right next to American flags at peaceful rallies. They're walking Confederate flags at veterans parades. They're declaring that we're going to get rid of all the unwanteds. They have a toxic worldview. The Cheeto has legitimized it. Mainstream media has legitimized it. NPR has legitimized it by having these conversations. Now, I realize that some Americans may not be informed about this, so maybe they need to know about the alt-right. Maybe they need to know about this well-spoken white nationalist. But anyone that's been awake for a while doesn't need to listen to those voices. You've heard them 1,000 times before, and you are sick to death of them, of their excuses, of their justifications, of their utter absolute bullshit, all trying to obscure the fact that they're neo-Nazis and white nationalists, that they are racists and bigots to the core, also almost always also misogynists. So sometimes there is no middle ground. There is no bridge to build. Sometimes you just tell them, we're done until you abandon your toxic worldview.